Oh, flip phone too.
Welcome
Really?
to the
Flip phone, there you go.
June Manhattan Community Board 7 Health and Human Services Committee.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, welcome
Thank
to
you.
welcome to the Manhattan Community Board 7 Health and Human Services Committee. We have 5 new members of the committee.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
That's great.
I think we have now a committee of 13, which probably eclipses transportation, the most popular, before this, the most popular committee on the board, one of them. I was thinking maybe before we adopt the agenda, we should just go around and introduce ourselves briefly and say a little bit about your background. And so we'll start with people at the table and then we'll go to Zoom. So I'm Ken Coughlin. I've been on the board for 16 years. I'm also on the Transportation Committee. And my relevant background for this is for about 20 years, I worked in the field of elder law in the editorial end. I managed websites and newsletters for consumers and attorneys that talked about Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare. So I have a little expertise in that. And I also, many years ago, worked as a mental health counselor at St. Luke's Roosevelt with emotionally disturbed teenagers and also in an adult day treatment program. So that's partly how I ended up here.
So I'm Saralee. I'm co-chair with Ken and previously with. I'll have to talk about it.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I'm here because I'm elderly, and there you go. But because I haven't worked with elder care, and that it's not my background. I am very interested in the things of this committee. For example, I am interested in the mental health issues that we take on. I am very interested in the immigration aspects of what we're doing and also the criminal defense issues that we've taken up, among other things. I also live on the west side and have for many years, and I've noticed just when I walk and when I'm in the neighborhood that it has grown older as time has gone by. And from what I understand, we're one of the oldest community boards in the city. So my actual background is that I was a lawyer who did civil poverty law, and I actually worked for God at Riverside Community Center, with whom we do a lot, and was the director of their law project. I was a judge for 18 years, and then I retired and I did mediation. That's it.
My name is Hayden Brockett. I'm a new member of the committee. I think I'm next. And I've lived, I'm starting my 8th year in New York. I lived I live in 107 in Broadway, so I'm sort of representing the northern contingent of CB7. I'm interested in the issues of health and mental health and physical health. I'm on the environmental committee as well. I'm also a lawyer by day job, and then I've worked for the federal government in a couple of capacities. Most recently at the Securities and Exchange Commission, but that does not have anything to do with what I'm doing here, or certainly not anything to do with health. But I'm interested to learn from all the folks who've been here, and happy to contribute however I can.
Great.
Hi everyone, my name is Nandita Venkatesan. It looks like Bandita with an N is how I describe it. My name gets autocorrected in phones to bandits in most places, so fun fact. But yeah, I've been living in the Upper West Side for 2 years. I've been in New York for 2 years. In addition to CB7, as I'm a new member here, I'm also a new member to MSWAB, which is the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board. It has a terrible name, but it's basically more about like environmentalism and talking about how we kind of recycle and reduce our waste and recycling and organic composting and all that kind of stuff. But apart from this committee, I'm also on the budget committee. I think this is a joint meeting, so it's kind of exciting for me. I'm really interested in mental health as well, especially in talking about how we can address the needs of like members of our community who have autism, ADHD, or other kind of mental health issues, diagnoses such as bipolar or schizophrenia. I feel like a lot of times we talk about mental health as a society, we talk about depression or anxiety. It could often be situational as well. But when you have these kinds of lifelong ongoing conditions, it's you need a different level of empathy and compassion, resources from other people around you. And I'd be interested in kind of contributing in that manner. So yeah, that's me. Oh, and my day job, I'm a trading market data engineer at a finance firm. So if you have any tech questions, let me know.
Hi, everyone. My name is Issac Adlerstein. I'm also a new member here. I serve as the executive director of Broadway Community, a homeless service agency on Broadway. So in CB9 is where my organization is located, but I live in CB7. I'm on 102nd between Broadway and Amsterdam. And of course, I'm very, very involved and passionate about homeless service work, mental health, food insecurity, law, just the intersection of everything. I feel like folks that wind up experiencing homelessness are often on the margins and have been marginalized in many, many ways. So I see this committee is the intersection of all of that. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer Maulsby. My husband and I have raised our 3 children, 82nd and Columbus. We've been there for almost 25 years, same co-op. I started my career early on doing September 11th relief work and moved to the Department of Health. And I was the director of mental health administration for a number of years for the city. And I now run a nonprofit that supports many large homeless service organizations like Fire Residents Committee, and provide tangible support to homeless groups. And I just graduated from NYU with a degree in health law from law school, and I'm moving more into capacity building in the public sector because we really need it as much as you can do more community work. I think firm believer in not necessarily bigger government, but much more effective government here in New York City. And I'm a hyper-local activist, but definitely want to build capacity to do better work within our public system. And I'm really grateful to be here to be able to learn a lot and contribute.
Okay. Shelley Fine. I was co-chair for 5.5 years of Health Human Services, part of the time with Saralee and on the committee. Let's see, my professional background was initially in special education, worked with young adults into their 20s who would have been, whose peers were in institutions, okay, and young children whose peers were in institutions and had no tolerance for it. So worked to do it, got myself in trouble trying to have people do things that they often could do. But I was told you're raising expectations, and that's not a good thing. So that was my background. And then I spent 15 years in special education in the South Bronx, in public schools. And they kept trying to push me out to be a supervisor. Okay. But eventually I did it because I was able to institute a lot of the stuff we're using for kids in special ed that kids in the general population needed, and was able to integrate, before mainstreaming even, integrate our special ed kids into part-time regular classes. And then it became the thing to do. On the side, we're president of Westside Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing, which I've worked in for 45 years, 46 years now. And the purpose of which was to create affordable senior housing for low-income people who, and we insisted on doing something that wasn't done at that time, was to have everyone had a social worker, not just to house people, but to give them support in moving to better, type of living for themselves as they were able and wanted to. And each building was property managed by our organization, still is. There are over 30 buildings now, half on the west side. You may know some of them. You could all down the block. It's for one. I live on 103rd Street. Marseille was our first building. Okay. I'm a chaplain. Okay, because over the years, a lot of my work has been with street homeless people, but it was not official. And when I became a chaplain, I realized that I could get into any place I wanted to get anything done because people think that it's something official and there's a badge that goes with it. So they able to keep people from being taken advantage of in court and getting people into private rooms in the emergency room at Mount Sinai West, which I didn't know existed.
Can you wear masks like ice?
What's that?
Can you wear masks like ice? You said this. That was a joke.
Oh, okay. I was trying to process it. So, what else? I do most of the community emergency response team, division head for 6 neighborhoods in Manhattan, including our own, a whole bunch of other things, but everything meshes, okay, and becomes a way for me to do the things that even when I was a teenager, the teacher said he'll never figure out what he wants to do because he wants to do this, he wants to do that. But these things come together and one supports the other. And so I feel very privileged. I've been on the board for 39 years, never applied. David Dinkins of blessed memory called me to his office and said, I need you to be on the board. What board? So he said, community board. I said, I'm chair of the school. Okay, a lot of nights, a lot of things. And he told me why. He felt that things were not happening right, and he wanted someone who had background in housing, education, and who would call out things that were not appropriate. So he finally convinced me 1 year, do 1 year, okay? Because I respected him and had a relationship. So I said, I'll do it for 1 year. And the rest is history.
Okay,
Okay, sorry if I went on too long, but this is.
I learned some stuff. Okay. So let's just going around the screen. Our other new member who's new to the committee, but definitely not new to the board, Roberta.
Hi, everybody. I'm Roberta. I'm chair of the senior task force, and I'm past chair of the budget and strategy committee, and I'm past chair of the board. I have a strong background in the field of mental health, but I worked most of my career in entertainment advertising. And I've been involved in the community. When I first moved here, I was involved in fighting against overdevelopment.
Okay.
Lisa's on the committee.
Yeah, we're going around the screen.
Oh, you speak like this. I see.
Yes, right. Will?
Hi there, can you all hear me? Okay. My name is William Ortiz. I'm a lifelong Upper West Sider, born and raised native New Yorker. My entire life in the Upper West Side. True story, my parents are named Tony and Maria, so you can't get more of an Upper West Side story than that. Yeah, Upper West Side native, went to PS9, IS-44, Beacon when it was still in the neighborhood. Associate's degree from Kingsborough Community College, bachelor's from City College, master's from Fordham. I have spent the past 20 years working at a tech company, which is a customer-facing role where I work with a lot of people. So I have a tech background. I have a lot of soft skills, customers, soft skills. Um, Most recently, I have a role as a business consultant, so I advise people and give them the best advice on what is required to start a business. And it's actually part of New York City SBS. So for those of you who know me for the past 5 years, I'm happy to share my new role. Why am I in Health and Human Services? Well, honestly, the real reasons, one of the main reasons is Shelley. For those of you who don't know, Shelley's an amazing human being. We met in land use many, many years ago. Oh, I also sat on many other committees, land use, BCI, parks, transportation. I think I sat in, of course, Health and Human Services. So that's already 5 committees. I've been nominated for vice chair 3 times, only ran twice. Very passionate about helping people and serving people in any way that I can, whether it's just being an ear or just guiding them to the right resources. I sit in Health and Human Services mainly because of Shelley, but at the same time, health is a very important issue. My parents are seniors living on the Upper West Side, so learning of the resources, finding ways to support them. In addition to, I think there's also um, men in general and men of my age, mid-rate age, tend to ignore health warning signs, and we don't have the same digestive system that we once had in our 20s and 30s, so we need to take care of ourselves. So I think it's important to kind of spread that and be a beacon and be an example uh, for for taking health very seriously. And yeah, I've enjoyed my time on the committee, and I look forward to working with everyone else who's brand new.
Michael?
Hi, sorry for being late and not being there in person. I've been on the board for the last year, slightly over. I am on this committee, but then also youth education and library. And I'm also the co-secretary for the board. So I'm part of the executive committee as part of that. I have my attraction to this committee was really more tailored toward homelessness and homelessness outreach and mental health. Like those were causes that were closer and nearer to my heart. But of course, anything that the committee is doing, that the general work is all also very impactful. So only been a part of this committee and the full board for a little over a year, so not as much experience as some here certainly, but happy to continue to keep learning and contributing where I can.
Thanks. Louisa?
Thank you. Okay, I've lived here since I was 18. I moved to the Upper West Side when my parents wanted to know why I was moving to a slum. Before the Upper West Side gentrified. Raised my family here, was the president of my co-op, which was a very old building that a bunch of people who could not afford going to posher parts of town were able to buy and mortgage with the help of their parents usually, and a lot of sweat equity, and made it a terrific place to live. Anyway, I worked at the Department of City Planning. I was the editor of the zoning resolution for 25 years. When I finally retired, I didn't want to hang around and have lunch and go to the movies, and I applied for the community board. And I knew about the community board because one of the reasons that I had gone for a master in urban planning was Doris Rosenblum, who I had met when I was doing some research on the Upper West Side on gentrification, when it started to gentrify, when I had gone back to school. And she was absolutely terrific. And she got me interested in urban planning. And it's because of her that I became an urban planner. So when I came on the board, Roberta appointed me as chair of the housing committee, which I was until, and I was also on land use because that was kind of the obvious thing with my background. And I advocated very strongly that housing and land use should be one committee. When they did become one committee, I also joined Health and Human Services, mainly because of the homeless issue, because homelessness and housing are very, very closely intertwined. I'm also on the ABC Development Subcommittee. I'm on the Senior Subcommittee, and I'm also trying to do something which is to create a drop-off center for people with memory issues. And this is something that I've been working on for a while, but we now have Shelley on board, and I'm hoping that we can make this a reality. There's a lot of work still to be done on this, but it's very important because the Upper West Side does not have anything like that, and there is definitely a need on the Upper West Side with this aging population and with the fact that so many people have various kinds of memory issues which tend to get clumped under the heading of Alzheimer's. It doesn't matter. The thing is that the impacts on the person and on their family and friends are the same, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully, within the next 3 or 4 years, we can get this really started. It's difficult to do, but I hope I can do it with the support of this committee.
That sounds like a great upcoming agenda item. I would like to learn more about it. Also,
Sorry, you skipped Miriam.
oh, is there one other person?
I think Miriam's on budget.
That- the person
Oh, hi, I'm not a part of the committee, but I'm here on behalf of the Budget and Strategy Committee to discuss the statement of
right.
community district needs. So whenever we're ready to open the agenda, I'd love to talk quickly with you about it, and then I'll drop off.
Yeah, we'll get to it in like 30 seconds.
And just tell Louisa a positive thing happened. The new HR person at Westside Federation of Seniors Board of Housing came from the Alzheimer's Foundation. And she said that she would connect us with the right people.
Oh, Shelley, I knew you were the right person to talk to.
Happened yesterday.
We also have Semer joining us digitally.
Yeah, so, and I just want to mention, we have one other member who is a public member for you new members. A public member is somebody who's appointed through the board rather than the borough president's office. We just recently decided to add those to our board. Every committee, some committees have one, other committees don't. And his name is Michael Cantor. He couldn't make it tonight.
He's from 107th Street.
And he's on 107th Street.
Very good.
Yeah. So the next item of business is we have to approve the agenda.
So moved.
So, all in
All right,
favor?
all in favor of approving the agenda?
That looks pretty
Anyone opposed?
unanimous.
I will approve, but I actually don't have a copy of the agenda.
Oh.
Oh, it's on the email.
You sent it, okay.
Actually, it's on the
Do
calendar.
we have hard copies by any chance?
We don't.
Okay.
There,
It's
I've gone
on-
like
we
completely
sort of referred
digital
to-
minimalist.
And you know, I was remiss, Saralee and I were remiss, usually we send an email to the committee members before the meeting, last Friday or something, and we give you the agenda just in case you did. It's on the drive, we have a CV7 drive where you can see it. We should have done that, and I totally forgot, and I imagine Saralee totally forgot.
I don't know.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm having trouble not hearing people that are on Zoom, but hearing people that are in the office.
Okay,
So if everybody in the office can speak up, it'll be very helpful.
Okay.
have you connected with Alex Crawford or anyone in the office?
I have.
To give you,
Yeah, I have access to the drive.
okay,
Yeah, so I'll be sure to check it.
okay, no, I.
Thank you.
Support. They're very helpful. Jesse and Alex, yeah.
Okay, the first item on the agenda, and I apologize for running a little, the introductions lasted a little longer than I thought, but if you're okay, we're gonna do the district needs statement and the budget priorities. So is that Miriam there?
Yeah, and Roberta, I'm sure, has a lot of great information to give also on this topic, as she led the committee for many years. But just to introduce, as we do have some new members, basically one of the activities that we do as a community board is we put together the statement of community district needs and community board budget requests. So this is basically a statement where each of our subcommittees puts together a list of pressing needs, which city or other agencies they want to direct these needs towards, if there's specific budget requests. We put this into a document that's formatted. We're currently working on fiscal year 2027. So it is done a number of years out from our current time. Obviously it's 2025 currently. So it's a forward-looking document. And basically in terms of where we are in the process right now, we emailed Carey and I, who are the co-chairs of the Budget and Strategy Committee currently. Carey emailed your co-chairs of Health and Human Services. He shared what the district needs were last year, and the Airtable form where your committee chairs can submit the updated or any sort of new district needs. These are then formatted into it, and we're asking for those to be submitted by the end of the month. These are then formatted into this document that is circulated. We get comments and feedback back from different our council members and agencies, and then eventually it's published on the website. So you can currently go on the Manhattan CB7 website and access our 2023 fiscal report, for instance. So yeah, that's sort of an overview of the process. Basically, the Budget Strategy Committee works through the summer, and we help to format and sort of give life to this document. But we're really looking towards you and your chairs to put in any of their specific needs by the end of the month, so we can include any sort of updates. We'll also come forward as a committee. We'll vote on our top 3, I believe, needs, and basically share those at a full board meeting. Otherwise, the needs are unranked. We just organize them by section based on each committee. So it's not a ranked document anymore, but we do put forward sort of 3 larger needs that we see. And I know in the past, for instance, your group has done a lot of really important needs about health, education, et cetera. So that's sort of a quick introduction. Roberta, if there's anything else you want to add, I know.
Yeah, well, the as everybody knows, the federal budget bill is going to be passed in the next couple of weeks, and that will change. I mean, the needs are still going to be there, but the needs are going to be increased because there are going to be draconian cuts to SNAP benefits. There are going to be draconian cuts to housing. NYCHA will be impacted. Section 8 will be impacted. We, as a committee, I'm part of both committees, but as a new member of HHS, we really need to look to see how much Section 8 we have that's exclusive of NYCHA. Most of NYCHA in Committee Board 7 is Section 9, and Section 9 vouchers will also be impacted. The state budget is out, so we can look at what I can send around some information. We can look at what the state is doing, and the city also. But the state also has funding for housing and for food and health, and as well as the city. The city budget should be completed beginning of July. So as far as the district needs, I think we can work on those. We might have to make some changes over in July, but I think that's fine with the budget committee. I'm trying to think. I think basically the document that we have is pretty good. The other thing to add is that if we put something in the district needs, we don't need to do a separate resolution, then we just do a letter. So, for example, we're talking about food insecurity. We wouldn't need to do a separate resolution during the year. We could just write a letter to the agencies.
Roberta, would something like Section 8, wouldn't that be housing?
Section 8 and Section 9 are housing. The problem is if those budgets are cut, we're going to see evictions and we're going to see homelessness. And we're going to see if people pay their rents, they're not going to have money for food and medicine. So it's we may want to look at this jointly with the housing committee, but when there are major cuts to housing, it impacts more than just housing people. It impacts homelessness, it impacts mental health. People don't buy their drugs if they don't have, if there are cuts to Medicaid, which there will be, if there are cuts to Medicare, which there will be, and definitely there will be cuts to SNAP. I know that WISCA is really feeling the crunch.
Okay, do the new members, do you need more explanation on what we're talking about?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I was looking at like the district needs statement from, I think from last year. And it, under healthcare and human services, it mentions that we have a couple of expense budget requests, but no capital budget requests. I was just curious about how you guys decide what our capital projects and stuff.
Okay, so the capital is physical buildings, for instance. There are no needs like that in our district. Okay, but expenses, food is expenses, mental health, programs of expenses, our safe haven was a large expense.
No, the way to look at it is personnel, supplies, anything up under a certain dollar amount is a expense budget.
Yeah, capital means that it's physical.
So if we went extra hospital beds for mental health, that would probably, you know, if we didn't need a space, that would probably be expense.
Okay.
But if we needed actually a facility, then that would be a capital.
So then are there expense budgets that we've put in, or expense requests that we put in year on year that get rejected and ones that are more likely to get approved? Like, is there a?
Yeah, so.
Good question.
You want to answer?
Yeah, I mean, Seema, Roberta obviously has a longer track record on this. There's sort of two parts to this. There's sort of larger needs that are not going to be paid for and can't be paid for, but we're bringing attention to these larger issues and bringing them forward as things that we stand for towards, you know, for our council members, et cetera. And then there's the needs that are more discrete. This year in particular, we're really trying to like itemize and say like, what will this cost? And can we actually get budgets to pay for this either from our council members or for city agencies? So there are kind of the larger expenses and larger issues that inherently are not going to get funded, but are good to bring forward as a way to advocate. And then there's more discrete things that we've been requesting. And Roberta can definitely speak to. There's been things that we've been asking for years that we have gotten funded successfully, but it's been a longer advocacy process.
There's also, so the district needs document is submitted on no later than October 30th. And press the button send. In late January, early February, the city planning sends back a document that is gone through. Every city agency replies their answer to what our request was. So I'll give you examples that are easier to understand that aren't related to HHS. Just because. So we've asked for a specific playground, and maybe we have partial funding for it because Assemblymember Rosenthal has given us money for a playground, but we still need $1.5 million. And so the agency, city parks department might say, well, you need to ask your representative for more money, or they may say it's in the budget, we're funding it, you know, we're funding the extra money and it's done. Very often they say something to the effect of call the agency and ask them, or call this borough commissioner and ask them. This past year, so in this last March, we answered, and we're given like 3 or 4 weeks to reply to their requests. And so we can send you a copy of the letter so you can see it. We can ask Max tomorrow and send it to you. But this year we responded to every request. So if they said we funded it, we wrote thank you very much. If they said it wasn't funded, we would say, well, we still needed funding, and our city council rep or whoever can't fund it. So this is an ongoing document. But if you look at the database, you'll see in the database we have a column for when we first requested it, whether it was funded and whether it was completed, because sometimes you'll get the funding in 2026, but it won't get completed until, or you get the funding, let's say in 2022, but it's 2025 and it's not completed. So we, at least you know that Frederick Douglass Playground has gotten some funding. Part of it is finished and the rest of the funding is there and will be completed, you know, maybe by the end of this year.
And the database is on the CB7 site?
Yeah.
Okay.
A good example of something that we put in, it felt was necessary for the community. Put it in 3 times. It was for a safe haven facility for street homeless, and a whole program that went with us, which we thought was a gold standard for helping the street homeless people move from there and eventually to permanent housing. We put it in 1 year, put it another year, and then Mayor Adams, someone put the idea in his head that this was a good thing to do. And because it was in our district needs and best project consistently, they knew they wouldn't have to fight us to institute it, that there'd be at least the board supporting it. And we got it that year.
Okay, so it's a combination of like things that we want to happen so that we show interest in, so that if they choose to go down that road, they know that they have our cooperation on board, plus things that we think would get funded because we already know that they're gonna be prioritizing that. Okay.
And then there are things like, and again, this is not an HHS issue, but it's one of our, so each community board is asked to vote on their 3 most important issues. And our top 3 have always been, or have been for many years, affordable housing, food security, and public education from pre-K through 12, grade 12. So we always ask for NYCHA. And we don't ask specific requests for NYCHA because we want every NYCHA building to be up to grade. We know it's never going to happen, but this is something that we always ask for. We then sometimes also ask for a specific, like a particular building needs a specific thing, but we always have the overview that we want. So HHS can certainly do that if there's an item that, you know, mental health issue or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think this is all a very good description of it, which is it's both an advocacy document and also a document where we can outline very specific budgetary requests and really set them to the right people so that we can continue to advocate and get that funding, whether it's for a council member or from an agency.
Yeah, because I think it's important to know that certain things are not covered by the city. And so if we ask the city for them, we can express it as a need, but it's not going to go anywhere. We have state officials and so on, we can approach them otherwise, okay, the resolutions and advocating and so on. But it should be that it is a city agency that does that work, okay, and provides those services. And then the follow-up is to go to our elected officials and say, these are our priorities, you know, our council people, we have 3 of them, and push them and push them and push them.
And any other questions? So you said we have till the end of the month?
That's our goal. I'm sure Roberta will work well with your team to get some great updates in, but we'll continue to be in conversation about getting the district needs profile filled out. So our goal is for the end of the month from the committee co-chairs. But if you have any other questions, you can email Carey and I, and we can talk then.
Is that a goal, like the July 4th is the goal for the big beautiful bill? It's a joke.
No comment on that, but yeah, that's the goal, to get it together by the end of October, as Roberta shared. So yeah, we're available if there's any other questions about this. And I was gonna say in person, but I guess we're all meeting digitally tomorrow for our full board. So we're available in email and whatever else. But yeah, we're excited to work with you. Obviously, there's a lot of pressing HHS needs in the community. So look forward to working to put that together with you all.
Yeah, I noticed that transportation has a document where committee members can add to or make contributions to the district needs and the budget priorities. Is that something we can do, or you're doing for all committees?
So we sent you, the chairs, the information. It's available in like Google Docs and spreadsheets. It's up to you. I mean, I think my understanding in terms of the sharing privileges is that anyone with the link can open and edit. So if you want to work collaboratively as a committee to edit that, I think you could organize it in that way. We've just sort of been directing the information through the co-chairs as sort of one source to make sure that we have a unified voice from the committee. But if you as a committee want to organize and collaborate in different ways, you're certainly welcome to do so.
What some committees do is they pick 2 or 3 people to work on it, not necessarily the chairs, but 1 or 2 people that are familiar. And Louisa, we may want to put in for a capital expense budget request for the if it's a building that you're going to need, or if it's part of another organization's building.
Yeah, so again, I leave it to you how you want to organize. All of the documents should be available to edit. So if there's an issue with that, we can certainly share privileges so that they're editable.
Okay, well, Saralee and I will talk about it. We'll communicate with the committee. But in the meantime, you should go to the website, and it's on the homepage, I think.
No, it's on, go to the budget and strategy page.
Budget and strategies, okay.
It's on their committee page, and there should be several documents. There should be the access to the Airtable and the access to the district meetings statement for 2026.
So
Fiscal year 2026, which actually started last fiscal year 2026, and it starts at July 1.
So we'll so anyway, familiarize read the district needs and the budget priorities and solicit.
Yeah, and then again, you can email me if we need to resend any documents, if you're having trouble locating them, or just to make sure it's very clear where those documents are available to edit. I can always resend.
Thanks, Miriam.
Okay, well, have a great meeting. Thanks for having us. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so now we're ready for the real meat of this. Oh, we have invited back a very special guest, Carol. Scott, yes, Carol Scott, who has come here before to talk to us about immigration problems that have arisen in the last 5 months, I guess. Many of the problems existed before, but they have really flourished in the last 5 months. Since Carol's been here, things have gotten actually worse, I think. I know. And Ken and I thought it would be really helpful to have her come back. And that was even before Brad Lander was, arrested. But
We would have 2 points in the proposal.
yes, I mean, yes, everybody should think of being arrested by ICE in order to succeed politically. But at any rate, it's not a joking matter. Things have really gotten worse in in terms of immigration. And we have many, many immigrants in this, undocumented immigrants as well as documented immigrants in this community board. From what I read in the district needs stuff that I did manage to read, we have people that come for food here, immigrants from around the city, and the people who come here to the churches are not just people who live in this neighborhood. So our district needs are really impacted severely. But in addition to our district needs, as human beings, we're very concerned about what's happening to both the undocumented immigrants who we thought were the subject or were the object of our administration's concern. But now they seem to have spread out to documented immigrants and to people with green cards. So we asked Carol to come back. We'd like her to tell us what is happening and what we can do about it.
Maybe come forward here. Yeah, maybe that's it.
For the microphone purposes.
Yeah, come take
Oh,
a
it's
seat.
probably
Yeah.
better. Maybe Carol, maybe here's better. 'Cause
I think you're slightly closer.
Yeah.
These things are called owls. Yeah. And they're the mics.
And they give a hoot.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for inviting me back. Thank you for your continued interest in this really important issue. I want to make one correction to the agenda. I don't work with New Sanctuary Coalition.
Oh.
So I feel like that's an important.
We'll change.
Yeah, I used to a long time ago, but currently I don't. So I work heavily with St. Paul and St. Andrew, right around the corner, in their migrant resource program. Okay, and in my day job, I'm a supervising paralegal at Bronx Legal Services in the Public Benefits Unit. So what y'all are talking about in terms of the cuts to SNAP and Medicaid and housing benefits and all of that also rings really close to my heart. But to talk about the immigration stuff, the last time I was here, we talked about ICE coming to your door and ways that you can protect. If you're a business owner, you can protect your workers. If you have people in the community, you can share know your rights cards and just help educate folks. And what has happened is ICE has basically just blown the lid off of everything that we thought was a protection. So it's not just documented immigrants. It's not just people with green cards. Citizens have been arrested. It's very clearly now a racial profiling thing and has nothing to do with immigration. The lie to that is just completely exposed right now because there is no targeting. There is no looking for the big bad criminals. There are ICE raids at Home Depot where people who go looking for work every day congregate. There are ICE raids in housing units. There are ICE raids in apartment buildings. There's a generalized terrorizing of communities in New York. And so it's clearly not about criminals. What is happening now and I'll talk specifically about the immigration courts downtown, is that when folks are going to their scheduled appointments, when somebody crosses the border, they're put in deportation proceedings, they get a notice to appear at immigration court on such and such a date for such and such a hearing. And when folks go to the court answering that request, the government attorneys now, DHS attorneys, are making a motion to the judge to say, we would like this case to be dismissed, which sounds like a great thing. It's not a new possibility, it's an older possibility. And when that case is dismissed, that person in those proceedings loses all protections that they had from expedited removal. Because if the case is dismissed, you no longer have a pending case. And then when they leave the courtroom, ICE, DHS, DEA has been there, HIS has been there, are waiting outside the courtrooms in the hallways and kidnapping these people, taking people and detaining them immediately and putting them right into expedited removal. So what this is a workaround to avoid any due process. Because folks are taken out of the immigration court system and put into the expedited removal system, which does not give them any opportunity to speak to a judge, to have their case heard, to defend themselves, none of that. It's infuriating, and it's very pernicious, because when you hear an attorney, a prosecuting attorney say, we want to dismiss your case, sounds great, like, yes, please dismiss my case, I'm good to go home. And then you go out and you're grabbed. So a big part of the efforts, and there have been people on the ground, mutual aid groups, led by people of color, led by immigrant communities themselves, working on the ground for a long time now, educating people about what's happening, educating them about their rights, offering assistance if it's wanted, if it's requested, and just letting folks know, basically, if you hear dismissed, say no, say I object. Because they do have the right in that courtroom to say, I don't want my case closed. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's directly related to this. So I've heard what you've said before, but I never understand what kind of case is being dismissed. Is it a case that the immigrant has brought to regularize his or her status, or is it a case the government has brought to do something to the immigrant? And is there a difference?
Yeah, there is a difference. So when folks go for affirmative, and for the folks on the Zoom, the question was, what type of cases are these that are being dismissed that are then putting folks at such risk? And the answer is, when folks are doing affirmative immigration cases, they're going to regularize or change their immigration status. They're going to request a green card. They're going to process a visa or something like that. They're proactively going to USCIS, which is not ICE. USCIS is a different agency, and they're having an interview for that whole process. It is less frequent that folks are being arrested in those situations. The cases that we're seeing most often are at the actual EOIR, which is the immigration court, or the ICE check-ins, where people are routinely called in to let ICE know, I'm still living at the same address, I still have the same phone number. And then they come back like a year later and say, still living at the same address, still have the same phone number. So they're coming to those check-ins and being arrested. They are, and that is without having anything dismissed. They're just being like set up, come in for this appointment, and then boom, they're getting arrested. They're also being taken when they go for what's called ISAP check-ins. So ISAP is, I don't remember the entire acronym. I think it's like Intensive Supervision Alternative Program. It's the folks you see with the monitors on the ankle monitors. And now they also use phone apps to track people. And those folks are called in for routine check-ins. You know, same sort of thing. I live at the same address, I have a phone number, I'm still here, good, doing my thing. And then generally speaking, like back in the bad old days, they would be pretty routinely just on their way. People are also being grabbed there. In the courtroom, 26 Federal Plaza, 290 Broadway are the two courtrooms here in New York. Those are generally either master calendar hearings, which means I crossed the border, I got this notice to appear, this is my first appearance in immigration court. And it is generally, it used to be a pretty standard kind of hearing, like an administrative hearing. It's your first appearance before the judge. It's when you say, I need time to get a lawyer. I'm looking for a free attorney. The judge would give a list of all of the free attorneys that have no capacity to take anybody on. And then the person would routinely be given a follow-up court date. You have such and such amount of time to find an attorney, come back at this time in however many months, and come back to this room. And then they would go. It was very low risk, master calendar hearing. At those hearings now, these requests to dismiss the case are being introduced. Not all judges are going along with it. Some judges are refusing to have cases, to dismiss cases. Some judges are happy to just do it. It's kind of a crapshoot, but we're trying to keep a sense of who is who in the judges. The other type of hearing that happens is an individual hearing, which is after you've had your master calendar hearing, you maybe have gotten your attorney, you've submitted your application, generally or frequently an asylum application, and then many years down the line, you're called in for an individual hearing, which is a private closed courtroom hearing where you go and you tell the judge, you argue your case in front of the judge. Folks are also being arrested after those.
Because they're being dismissed.
Yes, exactly, yes.
And then, sorry, can I ask, the dismissal motion by the government attorney doesn't have to be granted, it's
No.
discretionary.
Exactly.
But even when the immigrant objects, you're saying sometimes some judges are granting the motion over the immigrant's objections.
Yes, and sometimes when the dismissal is denied, ICE is still grabbing people in the hallway. So the goal of all of this for ICE is to grab people in the
Sure.
hallway.
So is that, sorry, you're saying the judges have denied the dismissal, the case is still active, they're still in removal proceedings,
Exactly,
and ICE is just disregarding the immigration judge.
that's right.
So actually I have a follow-up question on that. So I let me know if you can't hear me over the
I
Zoom.
should
'cause I
preface this by
project.
saying I am not an immigration attorney.
No problem, yeah.
I just need to.
Oh, yeah, no, you're fine. I thank you so much for all this context as well. This is really helpful to know.
Mhm.
You talked about like these meetings were always there before, right? These ICE meetings, the ISAP meetings are always, these check-ins are always there before. And obviously now people are being grabbed to these check-ins, people are less likely to go to these check-ins. I was curious from like the person who's going to the check-ins perspective, what is the purpose of that check-in in the first place and how has it been used historically? Has it been used for census taking, for auditing, for validation this person is a real person who exists? Like what was the original intention of these check-ins? And what's the impact now that people are going to be scared to go to those check-ins?
So there's what is the original intention according to whom? The original intention that's written down
Yeah.
is to make sure that people are who they say they are, that they're staying, that they're still at the same contact in case we need to reach you for anything. The ultimate intention is control and intimidation. That's the only reason. There's nothing that happens at these check-ins other than I told you to come in and you came in. Because if you don't, if you skip this, if you miss this court hearing, you'll be put in immediate deportation in absentia. So it's all stick, no carrot.
How is that? I mean, how long has those, I mean, this is also because I don't have context for the background for this. How long has that process been put in place that you have these check-ins and if you miss it, you're immediately put in deportation in absentia?
That's a date question, and I'm sorry I don't remember. But it's been since at least 1996.
Okay.
So it's not new.
In the Obama administration, there was tremendous amount of deportation, many things like this.
Yeah, and Clinton, thank you, Clinton.
1996 was when the OIRA was passed.
Yes,
Immigration Reform
yeah.
Act.
And that act in 1996 was a change that made many more charges deportable charges. Like it used to be these limited number of things will make you immediately deportable. After that immigration reform came, many, many more things made you immediately deportable. So it was like a step along the way towards everybody's deportable. It was not, like.
So as I understand it, it is a catch-22 that if you are an immigrant who has a date to appear just to show up to court, if you don't go, you'll be ordered deported.
Yeah.
If you do go and object to the dismissal, ICE may still grab you.
May.
Even if the judge approves the.
Even if the judge refuses to dismiss the matter.
May. Yeah, if you don't go, you will get an
100%.
order of deportation in absentia. If you do go and you assert your right, I object to this, I don't want my case closed, I want time to review this motion to dismiss my case with an attorney. And then the judge still agrees to dismiss the case and you say, I will appeal this decision. All of these are assertions of rights that should buy some time, but none of the rights or protections or privileges that we thought we had, do we still have?
It's truly dystopian, genuinely not metaphorically Kafka-esque.
Yeah.
set of circumstances.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm sorry, you just said something, they're disappearing people. Do you know what happens to folks after they are put in expedited removal?
Yeah, they have been taken to holding cells in 26 Federal Plaza. Some which are supposed to be temporary holding cells until people are moved to other places. There are some folks who have been held there for days. And then they're taken out of the state ASAP.
To private prison facilities?
It's all private prisons. It's all
All
the detention facilities are GEO and used to be Civicor. They all.
They keep changing the names as we.
I can't like give a history of the changes. It was GeoCorps and then, or it was Civicor, I think, and then Geo bought it. I don't know.
And so once they're sitting in ICE detention we've all followed the case of Mahmoud Khalil, in private prison facilities, then what?
Well, once people are out of New York, it's really, really hard for them to get an attorney. It's really, really hard for them to gather documents to make a case against. They would still have the right to say, I'm appealing my case, but the chances of doing that successfully have plummeted. And then folks are taken out of the country, they're deported.
How long does it take? How long are they sitting there?
I don't know.
It varies from country.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah. I mean, because you said it disappeared.
It's like Stalin-esque, yeah.
It is Stalin-esque, but it's also like the transportation of people from New York City to south of the Mason-Dixon line under color of law has a horrific precedent in this country.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long. So once somebody is detained, there's a very limited period of time where if they have support from the outside who has prepared for this eventuality, there's a limited period of time for those folks to file a habeas petition to say, don't take this person out of the state, like to hold on to them, to keep them here until, they can get some paperwork or some.
And the habeas petition gets you into U.S. District Court, I assume.
The habeas petition means that the person can't be taken out of the state.
Which is what happened. We've seen in these high profile cases where people they're trying to track down where they physically are to find the appropriate court to file habeas petitions in.
Yeah.
Those are very few and
Very.
very high profile.
But they're moved before you can even find where they are.
Right.
Yes, and there's an online tool to locate people in the detention system with their A numbers, their alien ID numbers, and dates of birth, but that is several days behind. So by the time that's actually up to date, the person may no longer be there. So the the moment with the most potential to do good is before they're taken. The moment with the most potential to do good is the moment of educating, of spreading information in all of the available languages to all of the people who may be in this situation, and then to get yourself trained as an accompaniment volunteer. Because what we have found is that people who go to their hearings with one or two accompaniment people who just stand with them, they're not attorneys, they're not speaking on the person's behalf, they're not advocating, they're there as witnesses, and they're helping the person navigate this horrible Byzantine situation. Folks who have people with them have been less likely to be detained. Folks who are alone are easier targets.
And
Oh, there's a
even-
question over the Zoom. Sorry.
Yes.
Roberta.
I think she's on
Roberta,
mute.
you had a question?
Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble unmuting. So the high school kid that was arrested, and then the whole school backed him. Do you know what's happened with him?
I don't. I'm sorry, I haven't been, you're talking about the kid in the Bronx?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been following the individual cases so closely.
But
Right.
the entire school got behind him and made a case.
Yeah, there's been some really good, strong shows of community support. There was one kid who was taken right before his graduation, and right after graduation, the whole graduating class
Right.
went to, to speak on his behalf. And I think that's all positive. I also think that's all very individualistic.
Oh, it's horrible that you have to do this.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
It's totally heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, it is.
I think
It shouldn't be surprising though. I mean, it's shocking and it's horrible, but we shouldn't be surprised, or if we are, we should take that beat and then move past that to how can we help? There is an instinct to stay in the shock and the like, oh my God, but that doesn't help. Yeah.
I think, but I'm not sure that the kid in the Bronx was a citizen. And since, there is no authority to deport citizens, is there?
There's
And-
no authority
But they're doing it?
Yeah. I don't know if they're deporting citizens. I don't want to say that, but they are not asking first. There are people who have been saying to arresting ICE officers, I'm a citizen,
Right.
and still being taken.
Because of.
Skin color. Yeah. 100%.
I didn't want to step on the point about volunteering, helping and educating.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I wouldn't just leave you with all of this. There's always an ask. So St. Paul and St. Andrew, along with B'nai Jeshurun and a couple of other community groups, and Co-Counsel, which is a group of really awesome attorneys, have come together and are forming a court accompaniment program. And it's a pilot, so I don't want to invite you out to all of it right now. We're having our first training tomorrow. We're bringing in a group of people and training them in this accompaniment stuff. And then we're matching them up with folks that have asked for that accompaniment. So my request to you all would be stay in touch with either me or Pastor Kay, and we will let you know when the next training is. We want to run this pilot first, see how it goes, tweak it as needed, and then spread it wider, because the need for educated folks in the building with the interest for the greatest number of people is really important. Yeah.
Is there any problem having someone in this role enter the courtroom and stand with the individual?
There would be a problem with standing, but, I mean, back in the day when the person would go to the front, we would stand up and like show the judge, we're here with that person. That's not a thing anymore. What folks are doing, there are a number of different initiatives happening right now, and I don't want to go into all of them on an unvetted Zoom call.
Sure.
But the accompaniment program would be, the goal is to go with people into the building, sit with them in the courtroom, make sure that they understand when we go into the courtroom, you need to check in with this person and this is what will happen and that's where you go and we'll be right here and, you know, be like moral support for that person. Without, you know, not speaking to the judge, not standing up, not like doing anything provocative.
What changed? with
What
the stand?
happened with Brad Lander?
What? Brad Lander. So Brad Lander was there with one individual person in particular. He had been in the building. He'd been like walking people out for about a week or so without incident. And in this particular case, he had a different reaction. And he made a different choice, which was to grab on to people and get into a back and forth with ICE officers. It's a choice.
The ICE officers were quoted
Oh, were they?
as saying, do you want to go arrest the comptroller?
Right,
before
right.
they did that. So it was a mutual understanding.
Well, I mean, yeah, but also,
Yeah.
the arresting agencies, and I don't want to just say ICE officers, because there is collaboration between multiple law enforcement agencies present in the building now.
Yep.
But those folks are jumpy. And it's like why we don't irritate the judges, right? An angry judge is a dangerous judge.
Yep.
Angry,
So that's why you don't
jumpy.
stand up.
That's why we don't stand up. That's why we don't do anything that is going to reflect badly on how the person that we're with is treated. Because it's not about us, it's about this person and all the other people in the room. So when you have a lot of press, which has been there now, a lot of spectacle, which has also been there on occasion now, it raises the tension and makes it a more volatile, more dangerous situation for everybody else. So
Comptroller Landon had walked out for a week without incident
he had walked people out of court before.
and had no altercation.
Including people who
Including
ICE
people.
was
Yeah.
attempting to
Yes.
detain.
Yes, this happened just to be something, a different.
Well,
Different choice.
Different choice.
He held on to the person's
Yeah.
arm.
But what about, the claim was, he was saying, where's your warrant?
The warrant hasn't been a thing
It's not-
in like,
Oh, God.
that's like,
Okay, so
You're
that
all-
was
you're-
just kind of
you're
performative,
fantastic.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dismissive.
but it was a little perform, I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't.
I don't want to say it's performative, but it's a little tone deaf. Because the reality is, anybody going into that building, you don't have the rights that you thought you had. Those days are past. So there has not even been a judicial warrant coming to the apartments and the doors in a long time. So asking for a judicial warrant when there are armed guards there in a building that has 10,000 law enforcement people, you, one little person, are not gonna unarrest that person.
But sorry, is there a technical need for ICE as an administrative agency to have a warrant to effect an arrest or no?
I don't even know. It certainly doesn't seem like it because arrests have been affected and I haven't seen any warrants happening.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to,
I don't know the law point.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the, I'm not an attorney
I'm
part.
sorry to interrupt. Will Ortiz, you had
Yeah.
a question a minute ago. Will,
Well, yeah, well, go ahead.
Hi, I thank you for this. I just was wondering. I feel like maybe this is you always have 20/20 vision in hindsight. what can be done at the federal legislative level if now that we know this is happening? I know the Democrats don't have a majority in the House and the Senate. That can change. It's always a swinging pendulum. So with a lot of there's obviously a lot of nonprofit and organizations that want to make sure that these families are kept together. What can be done, and how do we get the message across now on a federal level, where this is something that we can really push towards to the public, to the people, to the American people, that families are being broken and people are being, it's a traumatic experience to be taken one day when you're just gonna go to court because you think you're doing the right thing. I'm lucky enough that I personally don't know of anyone in this situation, but it's heartbreaking to think that this is happening to people all over. Do you know what are the next steps as far as what we can do to get this through on a federal level?
I don't have a federal level suggestion. That's not my area of expertise. I don't know. I know that there are national immigration advocacy organizations that are working on that level. And I would suggest reaching out to them, finding out what they're doing and how you can support their work. Immigration Arc is one of the really strong ones here in New York. So yeah, I would suggest reaching out to them and seeing how you can back their federal work. Yeah, as far as getting the word out to people that's happening, I think going around your neighborhood, your community, talking to people in the stores, in the cleaners, in the restaurants, leaving information about this is what's happening in immigration court now, and here's what people can do. You don't have to say, the person that you're talking to doesn't have to have a case in order for them to be recipient of the information. They may know somebody, they may have somebody, they may be the person and not want you to know that. That's really not the point. The point is to get the information out into your community in as wide a net as possible. There are Know Your Rights cards that several immigration advocacy organizations have made now. They're different than the red cards that have been around because the issue is different. The red cards were about if ICE comes to your door. The information now is if you go to court, here's what's happening. Here's what you can say. Here's what you should remember. Here's what your rights are. Google around for that. Look at Immigration Arc. Look at Make the Road. Find those resources and then spread them in your neighborhood. They're going to hit the people who need them. As far as federal changes, that's not my area.
We also have a question from Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not a question, just a statement here, but I think, in the context of everything that we've been discussing, I know we've discussed this multiple times before, and Will, I think you're hitting on this a little bit. I think one thing for this committee and potentially for the community board and other levels of, public engagement or government to continue to think about here, is that the issue that we're seeing today is in part a byproduct of, a series of, political decisions over the course of decades, not just this last election. And I think it's incumbent upon the people who now want to, in my opinion, performatively get arrested, which is a super privilege for people who are going into a space that are dealing with actual consequences and not looking to run for mayor. That's my kind of political take on that on election day. But, I think we have to hold these people accountable. And when they hopefully, presumably, are in a position to do something, to legislate and not perform. And so I think when we start to write to our elected officials, when we draft letters and resolutions and all that, it's imperative that we start thinking of policies that really address the core issue here, not just the effect of an ignoring of that core issue. You can go back to the Obama administration when they had the branches of government and they could have done something, they did nothing, right? So choosing to not enforce a law and then choosing to change a law are two different things. So I think that's one thing this committee needs to think about both in the short and long term. I also think that this is just one issue with how these communities are impacted. And it's not, this is obviously a very public and very prominent one, but walk around the community, walk around the city, and you will see people in 100-degree weather, children in 100-degree weather, out in the sun all day, not getting resources. These folks, for whatever reason, choosing not to use the resources that are available to them. And so I think that particularly for children who don't have a choice because they may not know a language and, you know, their guardians, parents, for whatever their motivations, not saying that they're unjustified, but, you know, we have to think about the other ways that we can help these communities, not just around the issue of, you know, ICE taking people and sending them into detention centers or out of the country. So, you know, I know that I've deviated a bit from what you were talking about originally. I know that you're here primarily to talk about that one central issue, but I think the cause of the issue is just as important. And the other ways that we can serve these communities as we go into hotter months, you know, these are things that are not going to go away in the short term or the long term. So, you know, I'm not proposing something specifically at the moment. I'm just saying, as we continue this conversation, I think we should broaden the ways in which we're thinking about trying to address it.
Michael, I just want to piggyback and thank you on that. And again, I don't want to deviate from the conversation, but I just feel like I just want to express this too. You know, one of the reasons we're in this predicament, I feel like this isn't, what I'm going to say isn't the whole reason for this, is that the process to come here illegally is ridiculous. I've had family members who have to wait for over 20 years legally, right? And because we refuse to pay the cartel or whoever it is to fund illegal activities, right? You're just not going to do that. We're law-abiding citizens. And so it's rooted in the process that some countries have a easier way in, whereas south of us there isn't an easier way in. Whatever the political reason may be, racism or whatever you want it to be, bias, I don't know. I'm not going to make a decision on that, although we can figure it out over the history. So we're here because of the policies on how to get here legally is impossible. And now we have a predicament of helping the people who are here, and we should help the people who are here, because families have been waiting for ages. So I commend you on your work, and I thank you for that. I just felt that it was important to share this because maybe, you know, again, you're in this space, and I think, you know, we want to feed these points of information to you because you just never know who could know, and this could come back to us, and we can support in a more significant way. But it's always very challenging to hear this because no one should ever be abducted, for lack of a better word. So
exactly, and I just want to follow up on one thing that Michael said about the issues going on and continuing in the heat and all and being broader than just being disappeared. And that is part of the strategy is to divide people, right? So I would suggest that in your thinking about what to do for the immigrant population, you don't separate low-income New Yorkers, because right now there's a strong pitting of why aren't you upset about the people who are already here who don't have enough food? Why are you only worrying about the people who came here illegally, regardless of whether there is a legal way or not? And I really would hope that you work to just circumvent that narrative completely and not let the elite power pit people against each other. It's like that good immigrant, bad immigrant kind of thing, you know, well, you know, they're the criminals, that's why it's okay to take them. It has never been about that, and that has never been real. And the reality is that nobody should struggle for shelter. Full stop, right? This immigration issue is one particular manifestation of what I think of as a war on people who are not the elites. And they are in the communities, they are often allied with and working in solidarity with other low-income people, recognizing that my enemy is not you, my enemy is you, right? So I just would, I want to give some like plus ones to the idea of keep in mind the issue is not, there are not discrete issues, right? The issue is not immigration. The issue is poverty. The issue is injustice. And that's huge. And it's right then to say, what can I do in this one part of it? As long as you're keeping aware, it's not just about this one person. It's not just about this one student. It's about all of the things. And I'm doing what I can to help in whatever place I can.
So I actually have a follow-up question on that, and this might be a question that you might not have the answer to as well.
Yes.
I can project a bit more. I know I'm a bit of a quiet person. So we talked about before when people are worried that they're gonna get arrested when they go to these check-ins, they're nervous about going to those check-ins. And these check-ins don't really serve a purpose, but there must be other places that they go to for different resources that do serve a purpose, right? Like going to like a food pantry, going somewhere other places like that. Those other resources that they go to, are people less likely to go to because of they're worried about being arrested?
People are afraid
And
to
what
leave
can
the
we
house.
do as a community
Right.
board to address that
And
necessarily?
sometimes they have to show some type of ID to register.
It
Okay.
depends on the, yeah. Depends on the
And then they're afraid that their name will be on a list and then they'll be able to cross check.
So I guess my
Yes,
question
and parents aren't sending their children to school.
Right.
yeah.
So the children are suffering to begin with, and now they're suffering because they're not in school.
Right.
And they're not getting the resources that they would have gotten in school.
I think it's a really good question, and it sees the broader issue, and the only, like, the antidote to that, or the softening around that, is to be a safe place, is to be a safe person, is to have a real genuine relationship with people, or to go to places and build trust. It's what we work at so hard at SPSA, to make this like a believable safe space, and arranging for, we'll walk you to the train. We'll make sure that you get to the train okay. Recognize and not diminish people's fear, and then give them ways to get through it. Like, maybe we want to organize a walking carpool of people, so nobody's going to school alone. Maybe we want to organize shopping trips so that 5 people are going to the store instead of 1 person by themselves. That's an easier target. It's important to, as a white person, it's important to not go in and say, here's the answer for you, right? But to say, how can I help, or what do you need, or do you want, what would help you from me?
Isaac, you have a question?
I did.
I'm sorry.
Isaac is, hang on, Louisa.
Have you heard any indication that the Census Bureau might be collaborating with ICE? I mean, the Census Bureau has begun to send out a community census survey, which they do every couple of years. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard it. The last time I had knowledge of the census was in 2020, I think, when they did the last
Now
one.
at the post office, right?
What?
Post office is now going to administer the census.
I haven't heard that, but it's very possible. It's very possible. But the other day we got a letter from the Census Bureau that said that our organization has been selected as a subject for the
What?
census.
Yeah. To like get demographic info on your organization.
Yep.
I haven't heard that. I don't have information about that.
It's fair to be skeptical in today's day and age.
Louisa?
Okay. You're talking about the good things that one can do, which is basically stand for the immigrants by escorting people or standing next to them, whatever. But that isn't going to stop ICE from going in and arresting people and handcuffing them. And as you said, people should not engage with ICE. The last time you were here, it was, I agree. I remember about, you could say, where's your warrant? Where it has to be signed by a federal judge, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, that doesn't matter anymore. So what can we do? Because if they can come in and just pluck people out of the middle of this school group or shopping group or whatever, I feel this great sense of helplessness.
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I want to be clear that everybody makes their own choices. I'm not prescribing, do this, don't do that. And if it comes across that way, I apologize. I want to give you as much information as I can. And then everybody makes an informed choice about what they feel comfortable doing, what they want to do, what risk they can take or not take. And that's why it's really important to not just walk into immigration court, but to make sure that you're trained, that you know what to expect, that you're prepared to go in.
Okay.
It's not a casual thing, and it's traumatic for everybody. But you're correct also that standing next to someone doesn't necessarily stop them from being abducted. Absolutely true. Some things that you can do that are non-intrusive or less provocative, you can film, you can document, you can make sure before you get to that point that you have a relationship with this person and you know if something goes sideways, who should I call? Do you have a plan in place? If something goes wrong, who's going to pick up the kids? Is there an emergency contact that we should have just in case?
Okay.
Do you have your documents all in one place? Are they saved on your phone? All of this stuff just in case. So that in that moment, there's not a lot you can do. So showing up in that moment you're making a different choice in what you want to do. If you want to help this individual person, then you set up as much as you can beforehand to have whatever happens be as prepared for as possible. And then, you hope for the best and you deal with whatever happens.
But it seems to be what you're finding is having somebody accompany helps protect them. Like they're just less likely to go after somebody.
What we found is that folks who have accompaniment, fewer of those folks have been arrested than folks that have not. So I really don't want to give it any more power than that.
Right.
But as of right now, what we're finding is folks who are not alone have not been taken as often as folks who are alone.
But nobody is filing like a habeas petition, like that's the only legal thing you can do to be protected.
A habeas petition is a very specific legal move that happens after a person's been detained. Right.
And it has to happen.
You have to do it right
Has
away.
to happen really quickly.
So is that part of the plan that we could in theory
If you're an
provide?
immigration lawyer, if you're not an immigration lawyer, I would not mess around with it.
No, I meant to say like part of the plan would be hooking up people with, lawyers or.
If you all have
backstaff, yeah,
ins for immigration attorneys that are, legit and
We can't all have Quinn Emanuel.
say it again.
We can't all have Quinn Emanuel
Yeah.
like Kilmore has got, so.
And Governor Hochul's not gonna show up for everybody, right? So,
Can I recommend something?
yes, for sure.
People, if you've not been to St. Paul and St. Andrews on to see what they do, I would recommend. Usually it's Monday morning that you have the big program. It's totally amazing. They have turned the inside of the church totally around. They've created a safe haven for people. If you're around on a Monday morning, I would recommend just emailing Ken Carpen and seeing if you could show up and just have a quick tour. It's totally amazing how they've integrated people into their community.
Thank you for that shout out. I appreciate that. I would go one step farther and say, you don't have to email before you come. You can show up and offer to help.
And you
rather
can
than-
volunteer. And volunteers are always needed.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, you know, it's every Monday and it's an ongoing program. It's been going on for years. And, you know, in the heat last Monday, there were 125 families there looking for services. So, yeah, it's a really good program. I appreciate that, Roberta.
This is what a house of worship should be.
Now, and I'll share also, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'll bring some business cards tomorrow. My organization on 114th and Broadway, it's in the basement of the Broadway Presbyterian Church. So again, outside of this community board, but not very far from it. Monday through Friday, we have a program for people experiencing homelessness, hunger, who are just otherwise in need. So we have a soup kitchen on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays that serves between 200 and 300 people, always in need of volunteers. We have a food pantry open on Thursdays, serving about 120 families each of those days. And then we have a whole bunch of other programs, including workforce development. We have a shelter 7 nights a week, 365 nights a year. But anyhow, I'll bring some business cards tomorrow, and it says very
We're not,
plainly.
can't bring
We're
it tomorrow,
meeting on
but you
Zoom.
can tell us now.
Okay,
because
it says very
We're on
plainly.
Zoom tomorrow
Right.
only.
So it's a very tangible way, I think, to help people that are
Right.
in need. It
Yes.
says, you know, if you are hungry, in need of a shower, in need of social services, please go to 114th and Broadway. They're open on such and such times, such and such days, both in English and in Spanish. So
That's
I'll bring a bunch
amazing.
of those business cards the next time, and I'll drop some off at St. Paul's.
I would invite you to contact Lee, Pastor Lee at SPSA, and see if, I'm sure that she would be happy to give you the mic for like 5 minutes so you can talk to the people there and just share this resource, because that's awesome.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
Remind us of the name again.
It's Broadway Community.
Broadway
Our website is broadwaycommunity.org.
And do you have any requirements or qualifications?
We make it as low barrier as possible. We ask people at the door what their names are, but they can give an alias, and that's okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great.
And if someone is in need of shelter, it's a bit more of a convoluted process,
Yeah.
but we are able to make that happen as well. But I'll definitely reach out to Kay and.
Yeah, do. Tell them
Yeah.
you want to talk on Mondays
Mhm.
and you want to present to the folks that come on Mondays.
I sure will.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I think these are both supported by the city in part, or through the grants there.
Ooh.
Yeah, so a mix of public support from the city, state, and previously the federal government, but that has since paused. And then, of course, private support, individuals and foundations.
Austin,
Good. No,
I was gonna say, because we're talking about like district needs statements
Exactly.
or budget, I think, we're doing the same thing. Are there like, I guess as part of like the expense budget, and I know we're like overtime and stuff, but I think this is still relevant. As part of like the expense requests, we can like say we want a certain amount of money going towards these organizations.
You know what I'm not the money person for SPSA, but I feel like any funding that could go towards immigration attorneys coming and doing Know Your Rights, any funding that could go towards, that kind of thing, like.
We need to talk to, we should talk to Gail or
Yeah,
in her, Cynthia from her office usually comes and talks with us, with the budget committee in July, to see if there's a fund, as a budget item in the city budget. If not, this could be a resolution.
And if I may, not to detract from the issue of immigration at all, which is very, very important, but related to what houses of worship could and should be doing, there is tremendous opportunity in the city to help houses of worship create their own shelter programs. Back in 2023, the mayor's office launched a $75 million program. It was actually modeled after us at Broadway, to create 50 shelters within houses of worship in response to the asylum seeker crisis. And I think St. Paul St. Andrew applied for it. There were a number of other local houses of worship that applied. and I think Rhoda Shalom applied. Many of them were turned down because their buildings did not meet
Sheldon no longer has one, but that money that didn't come to the community boards. That money came through the House of Worship to the
Which house of worship did you say it was?
congregation. Roberta Sheldon no longer
Roberta Sheldon.
doesn't have a Sheldon.
I didn't know that theirs was still active.
No, the Sheldon's closed during the pandemic.
Very
But
exciting.
that money came specifically
Right.
to a grant to the House of Worship.
Yeah, it was a program called the Emergency Shelter Network.
For the district needs, we need stuff that would come directly to city agencies to
Right.
where.
Well, if I could just complete the thought. So that money came from a program called the Emergency Shelter Network.
Right.
Through Department of Homeless Services, and that all stopped during COVID. And at its peak, the Emergency Shelter Network, I used to be on the board of the organization, had 43 shelters, I think.
Right.
And it was a powerful alternative to the traditional DHS shelter system. People would go to a drop-in center and they would get bused to a house of worship. They would get a meal there, and then they get picked up in the evening. I think St. Paul, St. Andrew may have used to be part of it. Anyhow, all of those closed during COVID. But in November, this November, I might be a tiny bit premature in announcing this, but we're going to be launching a 7-bed shelter with a local synagogue in the neighborhood. I'll share more about that when it is really official. But a 7-bed shelter, 7 nights a week, 365 nights a year. It's small enough that it is able to forego those restrictions that Department of Buildings and the fire department put in for the larger shelters. But I think it's a great opportunity. And Gail Brewer has been very, very supportive of that idea of bringing back the Emergency Shelter
They have
Network.
stopped because also to with the squatter issues as
Right.
well.
Mhm.
Because I know that Holy Trinity had a
Mhm.
very robust program
Mhm.
and stopped it because they weren't able,
Mhm.
and that's a huge loss.
Yeah. So in November,
But an interest in doing it, but a huge
Mhm.
loss, you know?
so we're going to go ahead and do
Yes,
it.
yes.
And
Maybe
the
we
hope
can
is that'll
start to-
inspire other
Yes,
places.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe some opportunities to do a little bit more technical assistance around
Mhm.
that, because I know there's a lack of understanding of
Mhm.
if anything has changed.
Mhm.
Fantastic. That's exciting.
That's pretty cool.
This is good. So I want to leave on the table an open invitation to be in touch with Kay or Lee or me about a general call for trainings for how to help out on the ground at these immigration courts. And thank you for all the work you're doing. Keep going, you know.
We put a newsletter out. We put a newsletter out every Friday. So if you have,
We'll let you know. You can put it in the
it could be
newsletter.
a flyer for, we can put it, we just need to have it, probably late Thursday to get into the Friday newsletter.
And Carol, may I ask what
We
your
gotta
email
get through
address is?
we gotta get through the pilot first.
Can I ask what your email address is?
C Scott, SCOTT,
Mhm.
BKLYN, like Brooklyn,
Mhm.
at Gmail.
Amazing. Thank you.
Sure. And if you email me, just reference this meeting.
Will do.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
In these dark times, it's, what can we do besides just wring our hands?
Mhm.
And you've given us something.
Good.
That people can do, and it's a ray of hope.
Good.
And like, I really want to thank.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
That you think is a good thing that we could do to get trained or to do something affirmative. Get in touch with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I definitely will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. So you were talking about bringing back the emergency shelter network.
Mhm.
Is it just your organization that's working on that?
So
or is
it'll be the model of the Emergency Shelter Network, but it will be under different organization. It'll be under Broadway Community.
Okay.
In partnership probably with the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, which includes Goddard Riverside,
Okay.
Breaking Ground, and CUCS.
Okay.
So
Keep
it's
it
all
as-
kind of unofficial at the moment.
yeah.
When it's official, I will definitely share word.
That's great.
I definitely think it would be helpful. I mean, I know we have until the end of the month to do the district needs statement, but like,
Can't hear you.
I know we have until the end of the month to do the district needs statement, but I think it sounds like it would be really helpful to have something on there that addresses having funding for like an emergency shelter network or having funding?
I don't know that we can ask for funding, but it certainly could be part of our district needs that we'd like to have the shelters. Because the funding may be that the House of Worship have to request the funding. So
There's so many
I think
houses of worship that-
I think it's an item for the district needs, and I also think Louisa's, we need to put your program into the district needs.
But I don't think
Well-
it has to be houses of worship, right, necessarily.
Well,
There's the need, and then we can get a couple different bullet points maybe. Yeah.
There's so many vacant spaces, and I think as long as you have volunteers and goodwill that's out there to staff these spaces, I mean, our facility is professionally staffed because we are DHS subcontracted. We get $70 per bed per night, and that allows us to hire security and staff and have a cook that makes fresh homemade dinner. But the emergency shelter network model is all volunteer run. So the program that we're running with the synagogue, that on a nightly basis is being run by volunteers, but in the daytime, people will get case management and housing navigation services from Broadway community.
So that's, you're like under $500 a night, and you're able to do all of that?
$700. Oh,
Yeah.
so we're not gonna get reimbursed for the program in the synagogue.
And
but
we can't ask for them because they're not in our district, but.
Right.
But so what happens is they manage
That's amazing.
So you manage the program, and then there would be House of Worship in Community Ward 7 that would host so it could be a synagogue, it could be a church, it could be 7 nights a week, it could be 5 nights a week, it could be, all year long, it could be 10 months, depending upon the particular circumstance of the House of Worship.
And I know from the project back in 2023, there's super high demand for this amongst houses of worship. There are lots of people that want to volunteer and they're not able to during regular working hours.
Well, way before
Mhm.
2023.
Yes.
There was a
I'll reach out to you and we can discuss offline how to get to the point for the district needs.
way before 2023, there was a whole program throughout the city
Mhm.
in which churches and synagogues and houses of worship provided overnight beds.
That was it, the emergency
And
shelter network.
Then with all these city agencies coming in and saying it wasn't fireproof, it
Yep.
wasn't this, it wasn't
You
that.
couldn't get them out if you had
And
to drive every day, yeah.
there had never been a problem.
Yep.
But someone raised the issue that if there were a problem.
I ran that program for New York Disaster Interface
Man,
Services. And
So they just destroyed this whole
It was terrible.
wonderful network.
only 13 places got off the ground for that. When I was there as the interim, while still serving as ED full-time at Broadway Community, it was a very challenging time for me. It was 80 hours a week. But the first 2 shelters that got off the ground was when I was there. Gilbert was very, very livid that so many places like Stephen Wise Synagogue, which used to have a 10-bed shelter, that they weren't able to get off the ground. And yeah, it was never a concern before
Before someone got.
all this money started getting dumped into
Right.
it.
And the West Side had the Beyond Shelter Coalition
Mhm.
of several, but not official.
Mhm.
So listen, Ken and I were talking, Louisa,
Okay, I just want to ask about this because I was a volunteer at Rhoda Sholem that did this, and I did one night a week. I would be at Rhoda Sholem. I would welcome people. These guys came in a bus. They went directly onto their cots. They had kind of little sandwiches. Frankly, I thought this was a terrible system. Everybody slept on these cots, including me. And then in the morning, they woke up, they had a very minimal breakfast and a bus picked them up. They were not allowed, my understanding was, they were not allowed to stay in the shelters during the day at all.
Exactly.
And so it was basically just putting them back on the street. Yes, it gave them a place to sleep at night on these very uncomfortable cots. But it then at 8 o'clock, a bus picked them up and a lot of them went back on the street.
Yeah.
There was a place that maybe, I mean, you understand this better than I do, but I don't think it was a good system.
Yeah,
Many of them had jobs, but Brother Sheldon, when we redid the building, we built special rooms down in the basement with real beds. So for the last 7 or 8 years of the program, we actually had showers and
Wow.
real beds, because it used to be up in the on chapel.
Well,
And
it was downstairs, but it had these, folding cots.
Yeah, definitely not a perfect program. And I think it highlights the need that there needs to be a safe place that people could go during the daytime, like a supervision
Exactly.
with activities that take place.
it was not best. It was not the best system.
Yeah, so whatever new thing God willing we'll create over here, we'll have to couple it with something in the daytime that is able to keep people engaged and empowered and off the streets.
Okay, can I?
Yes, motion to adjourn?
No,
No.
we have a little new business.
New business.
Okay, it's 8:30.
About the fact that we've been working hard to come up with interesting programs that are relevant to health and human services.
Agenda.
Agenda items, yeah. And we're gonna lean on our committee now to help us and to come up with other ideas and to convey them to us. And so that it won't be just us directing what we talk about, it will be everybody's interest and everybody's ideas of what is very important to this community. And so we ask you to think over the summer about what you'd like to hear during the year at various meetings, and we'll be happy to contact the people and do whatever we have to, but we do want people to contribute ideas. And I think that will make it a much more interesting experience for everybody.
And it could be informational like this was, or it could be something that results in a resolution.
Right.
And go to the full board.
We should also look at what the needs are of the community.
And may I ask how far in advance you prepare the agendas for the meetings?
About 2 weeks.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have a backup issue for going forward, but mostly it's a couple of weeks ahead of time. Ken and I will chat and say, "Ooh,
We should come up with 10 ideas.
pardon?"
We should come up with 10 ideas.
Yeah, at least, yeah. Sometimes we've had 2 in one, but,
And then you have one each month.
right,
One thing I think we're going to be doing in the fall is revisiting. We
Right.
had a vote on mandatory minimums. We had.
And why? It's hard to hear.
There were 3 prison reforms that we discussed, and 2 of them passed the committee, and one of them was objecting to a vote on getting rid of mandatory minimum sentences, and that did not pass the committee. And we only had somebody who was a proponent of getting rid of mandatory minimums. We didn't have anybody who was defending them. So we think we should have somebody who can represent the other side. If you know of anybody, please let us know. And then we might even have a debate between the 2 people or whatever. And then we'd like to maybe have a revote on it, see if we can.
What was the issue? The fact that there was not a opponent of the
Well, that was a-
resolution?
we were,
That was part of it.
that was part of it. The people who were there and the proponents of it talked about what they thought were the good aspects of the bill, and I forgot, honestly. But there were 2 issues that troubled the assembled group, and had we gotten answers, perhaps, from someone in the DA's office or someone who wanted, that could probably have alleviated our.
Which month was this? April?
March or
March.
I think it
And
came
it's
up in
on
the
there
April.
Looking forward to September.
Yes, and I was going to get in touch with Doug, who had originally had the DA come to speak to us about a discovery not our committee, but another committee. So, and I thought she was really particularly good and not locked in to a position. So I thought maybe he could give me her information, but we could use other people.
The other issue that's been delayed, not our problem, DHS, the 106th Street shelter. Follow through.
Why?
They're delayed, they said they're not ready to present.
That's Stephen Russo, the Goddard Riverside.
Stefan?
No, that's
Stephen Russo is not there anymore.
That's happening, that's going
Okay.
on. This is the 106th Street shelter that was clouded. Talked about, finally had a big meeting and got agreement. The community was very satisfied with the response and everybody came together, and then the follow-up, the committee tried to follow up twice. And what they said, they're not ready to present, the community wants it very badly. And then again for this month, again, they said they're not ready.
What organization are you contracted with?
The DHS.
Oh, is DHS be running it
Services.
itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to, on issues like that, we have to have them. They have the information.
Mhm.
And we've gotten them to share it and to make commitments at our meetings, which they would make otherwise because it's not their interest to come out and to share. But for some reason, they're not ready.
If we have that meeting, it may be up on 106th Street, closer to, because there's a neighborhood association that wants to be involved. So we may be offsite.
So if the ask is you want to rebring the resolution opposing mandatory minimums, the idea that if there are answers to the questions,
But like to be enlightened.
that could be then run this meeting and then to the full board.
Now, then the reason we were considering the three issues is that they were all before the state legislature.
Mhm.
And actually nothing happened on it this go around. But we were trying to get something done. There's no one there. It's Elijah. So we were asked, because it was before the state legislature, if we would do hear them out and do a resolution. I'm not a great believer in resolution. So,
That's what we
so
do.
I can't remember.
That's
So
what we got.
can I submit some suggestions over the summer?
Yeah, so let's suggestions over the summer. All right, well, we can
Okay.
talk offline. Okay.
When's our next meeting?
September,
Oh, wow.
Tomorrow and then
the fourth Tuesday.
2.5 months.
Yeah, the end of
And then
September.
the housing committee meeting, I just got Wednesday, I got an email from Semer.
When is the housing meeting?
Three days of meetings in a row for some of us.
YL is Thursday. When is the housing?
She said we may need another
No,
meeting
it's a
before
different,
this.
different meeting. It's not a,
No, the housing committee.
it's not the committee.
No.
No, it's the group, that select group.
YL is meeting Thursday, so it can't be housing.
I'm not on that group, so what is it?
Thursday.
Anyway,
Motion to adjourn?
if everybody's
So
anxious to
moved.
leave the cooling center. And I just want to say I'm really impressed with our new members, and I think you're really gonna add a lot to the committee. And I'm impressed with our old members as well. But I think this is very exciting.
Yeah, it's a good group.
Yeah.
I'm excited to work with you all.
Yeah, me
I
too.
know.
Hi, everyone.
We'll see you tomorrow on Zoom.
On
That's
Zoom.
right.
Night.
Okay.
I got my name tag.